Most business owners believe that the reason that they can't sleep is they're just too wired. They cannot switch off. And here's the thing, it's not a sleep problem, it's a biology problem. Now, you've probably done the magnesium supplements, the biohacking, listened to every guru on the face of the earth. It hasn't worked, has it? Because there is the nervous system that's not being treated, but as well as the belief that's under everything else that's affecting your biology. And so that's what we're going to go through today. I call it the wind down protocol, and it's part of the sovereign sleep system that I have in my Relentless Sovereign program. And today we're going to go through this swipe file here. Before I do anything, I want to talk to you about a client of mine. She's a very successful coach, manages a six-figure business, but for the last 20 years, she was struggling to sleep at night. We're talking 2 hours, 2 hours of sleep per night. And she tried everything. She tried the supplements, she tried the, sleep medicines, all of everything you can think of until she tried and came to me for help. And it was a last resort, to be honest. And we actually covered what we're going to do today. So make sure you stick around because what helped her is literally in here. So let's give it a go. Let's give it a try to see what we can do to help you wind down better. This client of mine, she went from 2 hours of sleep to 6 hours just simply by following this. So today, I'm going to promise you three things. Number one is we are going to find out which belief of the thing that's actually stopping you from taking control of your evenings. Number two is we're going to understand your biology. We're going to understand what's actually going on in that body of yours and seeing why it's impacting you the way it is in terms of getting to sleep and actually sleeping itself. And finally, number three is we are going to go through and design your own, what's it called? Your own wind down protocol so that it's tailored to you and you can take that and try it today. You can give that a try today, tonight, and see what impact it has. So, if you're watching this right now, you are probably one of two people, but most likely you're going to be the first one. And we call this the operator. So, operator. What do you do? What does an operator do? So, first of all, the operator, they believe that sleep only happens when you crash. It only happens when you absolutely feel flatlined. But what does the other side do? That was the side that we want to all be nowadays, that my client has become. And that is the business owner, someone who's taken control of her business. What does she do? Well, sleep is in itself the high performing asset, is the thing that will help you perform much, much, much better. That's the first one. The second thing that I've seen, not just with her, but with multiple business owners that I've sort of come across in the last couple years, is that the scrolling tends to be a form of decompression. Decompress. I'm sure you've seen it yourself. After a long day, you just want to sit down on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it means. You just want to do that all day. But the business owner, the successful, high-performing business owner, decompression, decompressing is how you perform the day after. Not just about what you do, but the act of decompressing itself. So that's the third thing that I've seen is that people and the business owners, the operators, they tend to allow their wired evenings to be something that they've just adapted to. So wired eve is adapted. But guess what? The business owners that are high performers, the ones that we see nowadays, they are taking their wired evenings as a signal. That's the difference. They see it as a signal to reduce the nervous system activation, to just help them calm themselves down. And so the last one, the one that I see typically is that more hours apparently means more output. So the more hours you put in, the more output you can. And that can make sense back in the day. But guess what? Now, with the right recovery, with the right wind down, less hours can still maximize your output. So let me ask you, how close are you to this side than to this side? Ask yourself, give yourself a color. So if you were to use a traffic light system, so where red, and then let's use yellow, and then we put green, where would you say you are at right now? Would you say you're in the red? Someone who is very much an operator, someone who still lives with the beliefs of the past. Are you someone who's still feeling like I'm still there? I'm working on it, but I'm stuck. Or have you made that transition and becoming a high performing business owner? Ask yourself that honestly and truly. Here's a fun little exercise that I want you to actually try. I want you to, first of all, this white file is in the description, obviously, don't need to mention that. But I want you to really, and if you don't have this white file, just have a thought, pause the video if you need to. Ask yourself these things, and I just want you to don't think. Just don't think. I want you to think of the first word and just come up with the first word that comes into your mind when you think about these particular things: winding down, rest, doing nothing. And I'll give you an example. So let's go through this together. A lot of the time, when I see business owners, when I coach business owners around these things, and when we're in the start of our journey, the most common thing that I hear, winding down, is not useful. There's no use that they see. And that's usually some of the first things that they say. Rest is not happening, for example. Doing nothing is boring because they're so wired into the dopamine effect, the need of wanting something after having such a long day. So go through this yourself. Just think of the first word that comes to your mind and don't think too much on it. Just the first word that comes to your mind when you go through all of these. And you'll notice what is your relationship with slowing down, with winding down at the end of the day, because that can very much determine how you perform the day after. So, one of the biggest reasons why you notice you are unable to wind down properly at the end of the day is because of one thing, your stress hormone, otherwise known as cortisol. Now, cortisol isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's only impactful when it stays for a long period of time, or when it doesn't, or when it comes at the wrong times of the day. And we're going to go through that right now. So, when we look at how cortisol is supposed to react or is supposed to be, we look at something like this. So, almost like a downward curve as the day goes on. So, naturally, when we wake up first thing in the morning, our cortisol level naturally rises. So, that's where we become the most alert. That's when your deep work session, one of the deep work sessions may start because you are the most alert at that time. So naturally, also technically speaking, you wouldn't need to even have a caffeine booster because the way healthily it's supposed to be is that cortisol starts nice and high in the morning and goes down as the day goes. So it starts off here, and naturally, yes, because of different stresses throughout the day, environment, whatever it may be, you will have ups and downs. But in a general way, it's supposed to go down. And by the time you are around here, this is the moment where you truly begin to wind down. Where if you do the things that we're going to speak about later on, it will allow you to get to sleep a lot easier with less stress, with less, craziness and confusion that's happening in your mind, with less sort of chatter that's happening in your mind and less worries, because naturally you are allowing yourself and giving yourself that time to get into a restful state. Now, what do we see most of the time when I speak to business owners? Is the complete opposite. And this is what we call the inverted cortisol curve. It starts off nice and low in the morning, which means, guess what? You feel groggy, tired, not because of just that morning, the night before. Because if you're ending the night on a high, then you will have a very difficult chance and time to try and fall asleep. And as a result, when you wake up in the morning, you become very groggy, very tired. So what do you depend on? This is when the coffee kicks in. Probably earlier than you should have in accordance to the research. And so that will get you going, that will create the natural boost. And then sometimes what you'll notice is there's even a spike here, which causes your energy levels to crash. How many of you guys have noticed that? That you start off nice and groggy, you have your caffeine fix, your adrenaline, you go nice and high, and suddenly you try to crash because it happens more often than you think. And as you get along, the cortisol level starts to kick in, and by 9 p.m., guess what? You almost have a second wind of cortisol where it just shoots up. And now, because of the level of stress, the level of anxiousness, the increased chatter in your mind, the level of thoughts that you have, the type of thoughts that you have in your mind, it's creating a lot of activity in your brain, and this is preventing you from going to sleep at the time that you must do. So, this is one of the biggest reasons why you are unable to wind down. And later on, we're going to show you the different ways that you can sort of reverse this a little bit. So I just want to get you to pause here at this moment. And I just want you to just notice what is actually happening here. How bad or how much is my stress hormone and my inability to wind down affecting my day to day? So these are a couple of questions for you. Or a couple of prompts. Second wind after 9 p.m. A lot of the time that we see that this most often happens, especially when coaching other business owners, especially around the sleep, that they somehow get this sudden burst of stress and energy when they're supposed to be winding down. Groggy and foggy and waking, well, that's probably happens more often than not, so almost always. They're dependent on caffeine to start. Now, this can happen depending on how rushed they are because they needed to sleep. And so they snooze because they haven't been getting their sleep. And so it impacts their ability to get caffeine that early in the morning. So that can happen sometimes. And as soon as you lie down in bed, how often is your mind racing? Is it always often? Give that a try. And most important thing is that you slow down to this. Because the easier and the better you are slowing down, you are then able to ask yourself how much you want to change. So now we're going to go on to how you can actually wind down, not just from a mental psychological perspective, but actually from a physical perspective as well. Because sometimes, generally speaking, you just aren't that, mentally fatigued. Sometimes your body might be more active and may feel like it's caught up in so much adrenaline that you can't relax. So there are two ways that you can help control yourself and help you wind down, both in a physical sense and in a mental sense. So the first way we're going to talk about is progressive muscle relaxation. What does that mean? So sometimes what you don't realize is a lot of the time, stress can be built in and can be found physically in our bodies. Neck stiffness, it could be lower back stiffness, your legs may feel a little bit more fatigued and stiff, so some sort of things like that. And in fact, I remember my mentor once, he came to me and he asked me, he was like, my neck feels real bad. And I asked him just a series of questions, and also he was traveling. And once I sort of prompted him and asking him these questions, he noticed that the neck pain, the lower back pain, all and the stiffness is coming from more of the mental side, yes, but also coming from stress itself and not something directly physical. So, how do we do this? So, it all starts from your legs, and you sort of work your way up. So, that could be from legs to your core, from your core to your arms, and then from your arms to your shoulders, and then from your shoulders to your neck, and then to your face. Now, it sounds overwhelming, but really and truly, it's just you're going up from bottom to the top. And what you're going to do is you're going to contract each and every muscle, just squeeze as hard as you can for 5 seconds. That's it. Not at the same time, you start a progress, you start with the legs and then go down, go up actually. And then you do that, take a breath in between, and then you do the next one, and next one. And guess what? This will also turn into, and you do sort of couple it with the next thing, part of the physical thing, which is called vagus nerve stimulation. It's just a fancy word of saying relaxing your body through breathing. So in between each of these, take one deep breath. Just slow yourself down. This takes less than 5 minutes. And this is such a simple way of allowing first your body to relax itself whilst allowing the rest of the vital organs like your heart rate, your breathing rate, your mental activity to also slow down because you're taking the deep breath in between the muscle contractions. So, very simple way just to relax the body first. So now that you've done the physical part, that you've allowed the muscle contractions plus the deep breathing to relax the body itself, relieve the tension that can live in the neck or the lower back, whatever it may be. Now you want to talk about the mental element, the psychological element. One of the biggest reasons, as I mentioned earlier, is that there's so much chatter, there's so much activity up there. You're thinking about so many different things with your employees, your finances, the way the business is running, your marketing, whatever it may be. And so there's a lot of good things going on. And not just only that, you're still operating the business and you're becoming an operator in your family life. You're trying to control everything. You're thinking about your children, you're thinking about your relationships, whatever it may be. So there's a lot going on. So there's one thing that I want you to try, and that's a concept called blurting. Blurting is very simple. The primary thing with blurting is that you do not sort of structure it. It comes out whatever you think of. So if, for example, you're talking about the business first, and then all of a sudden you have this thought about your family, and allow it to happen, because that is your brain's way of processing things. And you never know is that there may be a link from what's happening in the business to something that's maybe happening connected to the family. But allow yourself to just free flow. And that could be, for example, if you're writing it. So, for example, if you're just going like this, or you could do on a piece of paper and you can just point it out and then you can make those connections. However way you want to do it. You could do it with a voice recorder. You could do it with a voice recorder going play and stop, whatever it may be. You can use a voice recorder app on your phone, whatever it may be. But guess what? The most important thing once you do the blurting is that you delete it, or you rip the paper, you delete it from your phone, whatever it may be. Because the physical act of deleting it, of ripping the paper, That in itself tells your brain, especially when you're doing something physical, is that this is now being removed from my mind and it's calming itself down. And whilst you're doing that, the biggest thing, and this is actually grounded in Islamic principle, is what we call muhasabah, self-reflection, or muraqabah, depending on which word that you may use, is asking yourself these three questions. What is still unresolved from today? Is there anything that's playing at the top of my mind? If so, can I put it on a to-do list for tomorrow? That way it's dealt there and there. What am I still carrying that isn't mine? That's not in your control. And the third thing is, what's the one thing that I am genuinely grateful for? And there is a principle here is what we call the between the subconscious and the conscious mind. There's a great book, and I love this book. Honestly, I recommend it to my clients all the time. It's called The Feeling is Secret by Neville Goddard. And the reason why I love this book is because it talks about how the brain doesn't understand the reality from what is reality and what isn't. And so the moment you're able to think about the things that you're grateful of, the being who you want to be in the future, what does that life look like? Does that life look like you going from an operator to a business owner? And if it is, what does that look like in your life? Just visualizing all of that things. How does your life look like? What does your family look like? What type of legacy are you leaving behind? The moment you're able to connect to those emotions, those that reality, that visualization, that is when not only do you begin to live up to that, not only do you begin to live your life like that, but it allows you to calm your mind down because it doesn't release that cortisol stress hormone because you're now thinking of something that will serve you and not something that will keep you up at 3 a.m. at night. So give that a try. Try that blurting out, rip the paper, delete the voice recording, whatever it may be, and ask yourself these three questions. Now, we will be trying to create your own protocol. And I think this is important because there's no point, like I mentioned earlier, you trying to follow every other, biohacker, every other guru, trying to use different supplements that doesn't even help you. There's no point. What's more important is something that makes and is created and is tailored for you. So, what I want you to do, I want you to create a system and using this swag file. So, what you want to do is I want you to figure out what you want to do an hour before you go into bed. Into bed, not just sleeping, go into bed. Whether it be switching off any devices, whatever it may be. And then I want you to slowly go down and down by 15-minute intervals. So, for example, 60 minutes before is all devices off, for example. And the reason why it works is let's do that blue because it's blue light, as an example. And then you want to sort of go down, for example, 15 minutes before, I want to do wudu, so ablution. Why it works, it reduces the body temp, something like that. But the most important thing what I want you to try, and if you're feeling stuck like this, use the checklist that's next to here. So, like I mentioned, all devices off. That's a tick. And just go through this. You don't need to do all of them, by the way. Start with what feels comfortable. Lower the barrier to entry and just get used to doing that for a week, for a month, wherever it may be. And once you do, then you can add more, you can habit stack, you can create more, you can do more, right? And this is, by the way, what we did with the client that I spoke about earlier, who runs a six-figure business, is a great coach, but she only had 2 hours of sleep. And by not just tackling the belief system, but by implementing this very system that is in front of you here, we were able to get her from 2 hours of sleep to 6 hours of sleep. And she's even sleeping deeper. She's having better interactions with her clients. She's even said that because of this, because of sleeping more, because she's getting better sleep, she's reclaiming 2, 3 hours back in time because she's spending less time trying to survive and she's using that time efficiently, closing better sales calls. She's showing up for her clients even better, even more, just by making this thing into and making it into reality. So slow yourself down. Ask yourself, what are the three things that I'm going to do that once I create and put it into a system and I make it almost a non-negotiable, not almost a non-negotiable, what will change? What is possible for me when I implement this system? Not if, when. And make this just a system that you follow throughout the day. And you'll notice that as you progress and go forward, you'll notice these small, subtle changes that you'll able to sleep a lot quicker and you'll wake up even better, even more efficient. You'll wake up with greater energy. So give that a try. Slow yourself down to this part here. So we've gone through this entire swipe file, helping you become and go from an operator, someone who is just about clinching on to their day-to-day business dealings because they're constantly tired and you cannot wind down and you're constantly awake at night because you can't get yourself to sleep, to someone who's a high-performing, successful business owner, someone who takes their wind down as serious as delivering in their business every single day. Now, if you're new here, try this swipe file, try it yourself. Let me know how you get along. If you've been here for a while, make sure to look at my other videos because there's other things, not just about sleep, but also about energy, about decision making, all these things which impact actually your sleep and how you wind down. And if you've been here for a while and you've consumed all of this content, then I want you to DM me the word, if you want, the word sleep on Instagram. It will be in the link below if you want to take serious your not just your energy, but if you want to create yourself, dismantle stolen energy, inefficient execution, and free yourself from a hijacked mind so that you can build your business, own back your time, and leave a legacy, not just for yourself, but for the generations that come. If you've enjoyed this video, please sure to like and subscribe. All the resources that we used in today's video is in the description below, and I'll see you in the next one.